Now this is one of the best, strongest, and fastest Death Trap rogue build in Season 8. With this build you can easily push high tier pits and speed farm any content in the game. This build can easily destroy any Uber bosses and even Uber Lilith. And with this build I focus on damage, survivability, and speed to easily clear the hardest content in the game. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to have specific gear and will need to masterwork your gear to push the highest tier pits and quickly speed farm dungeons. And I highly recommend you to watch this video from the beginning to the end to see how everything synergizes. So let's check this out. So first I'm going to show you clearing a tier 90 pit. I can easily speed farm high tier pits, gaining tons of experience and glyph levels. And this build is so strong it can easily destroy huge groups of enemies and one-shot any Uber bosses. Now you can start this build in difficulty Torment 1, and I have a build in the D4 build planner for Torment 1 in the description below. Now the main source of damage coming from this build comes from the ultimate skill Death Trap. This build has tons of cooldown reduction that you can spam Death Trap without any cooldowns, and all our other skills and gear will be used to increase our Death Trap's damage. Now this build does require several unique gears for maximizing our damage and to reduce Death Trap's cooldown. But if you don't have any unique gears, I have shared some alternate legendary gear that you can use until you get the unique gears in the D4 build planner. I will also share alternate skills you can use to get Death Trap active all the time. And I have shared different build layouts depending on your situation in the D4 build planner in the description below. I will also go over the skill rotation when starting dungeons to greatly increase Death Trap's damage and to have Death Trap with no cooldown, because with this build you'll need some stacks in the key passive momentum to get Death Trap active all the time. And with our unique gears we can easily make Death Trap overpower all the time to greatly increase Death Trap's damage. So this build includes many skills and gear that complement each other, offering a lot of powerful combinations, but I'll cover everything in more details in their dedicated sections. Okay, so next for the skills. Now the main skill for this build is the ultimate skill Death Trap, and because of our gear and skills we are able to cast Death Trap with no cooldown, so we can just spam Death Trap. And with this skill you will place a trap on the ground that pulls in enemies and does huge amounts of AoE damage. The next skill I'm using is concealment, and this skill will make you go invisible and make you unstoppable. Using another skill will break concealment and you will be guaranteed to critically strike and make enemies vulnerable. So you want to always use this skill right before casting Death Trap to make enemies vulnerable and always critically strike with Death Trap. And because of our specialization we're using, which is preparation, this skill will be always off cooldown. The next skill I'm using is shadow imbuement, and this skill will imbue your weapon with shadow, and the next imbuement skill you cast will deal shadow damage. And we'll be imbuing our mobility skills with shadow imbuement, so either the skill shadow step or dash. Now the main reason we're taking this skill is because this skill will increase our overall damage, and because of a legendary node on the Paragon board, the Eldritch Bounty legendary node, which will greatly increase our Death Trap's damage because Death Trap is a shadow skill. The next skill I'm using is Caltrops, and with this skill you'll throw Caltrops on the ground that deal cold damage and chills enemies. Caltrops will also greatly increase your overall damage. Now the main reason we're taking this skill is because Caltrops will chill enemies, which will pair with our other skills and to greatly increase our overall damage. The next skill I'm using is Shadow Step, and this is a mobility skill that will quickly move you to an enemy, damaging them and making you unstoppable. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to use this skill with shadow imbuement, and also because Shadow Step is a cutthroat skill which will pair with our key passive momentum. And the last skill I'm using is Dash, and this is a mobility skill that will dash you forward and damage enemies, and this skill is really good for speed farming. And just like Shadow Step, the main reason we're using this skill is to use this skill with shadow imbuement, and because Dash is a cutthroat skill which will pair with our key passive momentum. And Dash also has 2 charges, which is important in the beginning of dungeons to gain stacks of momentum. Okay, so next for the specialization. Now the specialization is very important for this build, and you want to take the specialization preparation. And this states, spend 75 energy to reduce your ultimate skills cooldown by 5 seconds. Ultimate skills reset other cooldowns and grant 15% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So with this build you will have tons of energy and you will be spending all of it because of your unique gears. So this specialization will greatly reduce your ultimate skills cooldown and also reset the cooldowns of your other skills. Okay, so next for the boss powers. Now the main boss power I'm using is Beast in the Ice Sleep, and this boss power will shoot out spikes that deals huge damage and freezes enemies when you cast skills that apply crowd control. And since with this build you'll be spamming Death Trap, which applies crowd control, you will be constantly casting this boss power. Now for the modifiers boss power. The next boss power I'm using is Harbingers of Hatred's Volley. Now we are mainly using this boss power for the second part, which will greatly increase our vulnerable damage. We are not using a basic skill, so you can ignore ignore the first part of this boss power. The next boss power I'm using is Cinerat's Flames, and this boss power will greatly increase our element's damage. So this boss power will greatly increase our Death Trap's damage, because Death Trap does shadow damage. And the last boss power I'm using is Flesh Reaper's Disruption, and this boss power will greatly increase our vulnerable damage. Okay, so next for the mercenaries. Now for the hired mercenary, I chose Subo, and this is the skill path I took. One of the main reasons I chose Subo is because of the skill Seeker, which will reveal all enemies around you. This skill is really good to easily locate groups of enemies to destroy them. Then I headed left and took Wire Trap, which Subo will place a trap on the floor that slows enemies. Then I chose Ready at Hand, which will increase your movement speed. Then I chose Cover Fire, which Subo will shoot a volley of arrows that slows enemies. And lastly, I chose Opening Fire to increase my critical strike damage. And for the reinforcement, I chose Variana and chose the skill Bloodthirst, which will increase your attack speed when Variana uses Bloodthirst. And increasing your attack speed will make you cast your skills faster. And when you cast the skill Death Trap, Variana will use Bloodthirst. Okay, so next for the skill tree. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to have unique gears and boss powers to maximize your damage and synergize with your other skills. And with this build, I am using several uber unique gears, but I have shared alternate builds depending on your situation in the D4 build planner in the description below. And I'll go over a different key passive you can use if you can't get Death Trap active all the time. So starting with the basic skills, I put 1 point into Puncture and a point into Enhanced Puncture. And the only reason we're putting 2 points into the basic skill is to get to the next skill path. Next for the core skills, I put 3 points into Sturdy, and this will gain you damage reduction against close enemies. And then I put 1 point into Siphoning Strike, and this will give you a chance to heal yourself when you critically strike close enemies. Next for the agility skills, I put 1 point into Shadow Step, a point into Enhanced Shadow Step, and a point into Methodical Shadow Step. And this skill is a mobility skill that will quickly move you to an enemy, damaging them and making you unstoppable. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to use this skill with Shadow Imbuement, and also because Shadow Step is a Cutthroat skill, which will pair with our key passive Momentum. Next, I put 1 point into Caltrops, a point into Enhanced Caltrops, and a point into Methodical Caltrops. And with this skill, you'll throw Caltrops on the ground that deals cold damage and chills enemies. Caltrops will also greatly increase your overall damage. Now the main reason we're taking this skill is because Caltrops will chill enemies, which will pair with our other skills and to greatly increase our overall damage. Next, I put 1 point into Dash, a point into Enhanced Dash, and a point into Disciplined Dash. And this is a mobility skill that will dash you forward and damage enemies. And this skill is really good for speed farming. And just like Shadow Step, the main reason we're using this skill is to use this skill with Shadow Imbuement, and because Dash is a Cutthroat skill, which will pair with our key passive Momentum. Next, I put 3 points into Unstable Elixirs, and this skill will allow you to use healing potions even at full health to stun surrounding enemies and to greatly increase your damage. Next, I put 3 points into Trick Attack, and this skill will greatly increase your critical strike chance and critical strike damage when attempting to daze or stun enemies. And next, I put 3 points into Ballestra, and this will greatly increase your damage after evading. And then I put 1 point into Rapid Gambits, and this skill will daze enemies when you evade through them. Next for the Subterfuge skills, I put 1 point into Concealment, a point into Enhanced Concealment, and a point into Subverting Concealment. And this skill will make you go invisible and make you unstoppable. Using another skill will break Concealment, and you'll be guaranteed to critically strike and make enemies vulnerable. So you want to always use this skill right before casting Death Trap to make enemies vulnerable and to always critically strike with Death Trap. And because of our Specialization preparation, this skill will always be off cooldown. And then I put 1 point into Agile, and this will increase your dodge chance when using a cooldown skill. And then I put 1 point into Evasive, and this will gain you damage reduction after dodging an attack. And next I put 3 points into Exploit, and this will greatly increase your damage against healthy and injured enemies. And then I put 3 points into Malice, and this will greatly increase your damage to vulnerable enemies and enemies that are knocked down. Next for the Imbuement skills, I put 1 point into Shadow Imbuement, point into Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, and a point into Mixed Shadow Imbuement. And this skill will imbue your weapon with Shadow, and the next Imbuement skill you'll cast will deal Shadow damage. And we'll be imbuing our mobility skill with Shadow Imbuement, so either the skill Shadow Step or Dash. Now the main reason we're taking this skill is because this skill will increase our overall damage, and because of a legendary node on the Paragon board, the Eldridge Bounty legendary node, which will greatly increase our Death Trap's damage because Death Trap is a Shadow skill. Next I put 3 points into Frigid Fitness, and this will greatly increase our damage to chilled or frozen enemies. enemies, which we can easily chill enemies with the skill Cal drops. And next I put 3 points into Deadeye, and this will greatly increase your damage against distant enemies. Next for the ultimate skills, I put 5 points into Death Trap, a point into Prime Death Trap, and a point into Supreme Death Trap. And this is our main skill for this build, and because of our gear and skill, we are able to cast Death Trap with no cooldown, so we can just spam Death Trap. And with this skill, you'll place a trap on the ground that pulls in enemies and does huge amounts of AoE damage. Next I put 3 points into Trap Mastery, and this skill will increase your critical strike chance after a trap skill activates. And next I put 3 points into Impetus, and this skill will increase your ultimate skill's damage after moving 15 meters. And next I put 3 points into Aftermath, and this skill will restore your energy after using an ultimate skill. And I do want to mention that this skill is important for this build, and you want to have at least 7 ranks into this skill to be able to have your ultimate skill off cooldown all the time, because we need to be able to restore tons of energy after casting an ultimate skill in order to reduce our ultimate skill's cooldown because of our specialization preparation. Next I put 3 points into Onto Dawn, and this skill will just greatly increase your ultimate skill's damage. Next I put 3 points into Second Wind, and this skill will grant you a barrier every time you spend energy. And next I put 3 points into Haste, and this skill will greatly increase your movement speed if you're above 50% maximum energy, or greatly increase your attack speed if you're below 50% maximum energy. And last but not least, for the key passive, I put 1 point into Momentum, and this states casting a channeling or cutthroat skill grants a stack of momentum. Casting a marksman skill removes a stack of momentum. For each stack of momentum, you gain 3% damage reduction, 3% maximum energy, 3% energy regeneration, 3% movement speed, and 6% increased damage. Maximum of 10 stacks. So we're able to gain momentum stacks because of our skill Shadow Step and Dash. And I do want to mention with this build, you will need at least 3 stacks of momentum to get your Death Trap active all the time, because we need to increase our maximum energy. So casting Dash twice and Shadow Step once at the beginning of dungeons will easily get our 3 stacks of momentum. And then you can use Death Trap to reset all our skills cooldown and easily get 10 stacks of momentum. But I do want to mention that if you don't have all the unique gears and can't get your Death Trap active all the time, and then instead of using the key passive momentum, you can use the key passive exposure. And this states Lucky Hit, damaging a trapped enemy has a 40% chance to reduce the active cooldown of your trap skills by 30%, increase your trap skills damage by 10% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 100%. So this key passive will give you a chance to greatly reduce your trap skills cooldown. So you can use this key passive exposure until you get the gear and stats to have Death Trap active all the time, and then switch to the key passive momentum when you do. Okay, so that's the full skill tree layout for this build to easily destroy huge groups of enemies and melt bosses while having tons of survivability. And this build can easily clear the highest tier pits. And with this build, I am using unique gears and several uber unique gears, but I'll share alternate builds in the D4 build planner depending on your situation. Now I'll have this full skill tree layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. Okay, so next for the gear. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to temper your gear and fully masterwork your gear in order to push the highest tier pits and to quickly speed farm dungeons. And with this build, I am using several uber unique gears. Now this build also requires unique gears to greatly increase your damage and to reduce your skills cooldown. But I'll share alternate gears if you're missing some gear in the D4 build planner. And with this build, you do want to get the stat maximum life, because with this build, we will have Death Trap overpower all the time. And having tons of maximum life will greatly increase your overpower's damage and is also really good for survivability. Now I didn't get the best greater affix stats and masterworks on the gear I'm currently using, but in the D4 build planner I shared the best greater affix stat and what stat to masterwork for this build. And I'll have this full build layout and alternate build layouts depending on your situation in a D4 build planner linked in the description below. So starting with the helmet, I'm using the uber unique gear, the Shaco. And this helmet is really strong because it has maximum life, maximum resource, armor, and cooldown reduction. And you want to triple masterwork maximum resource. And the unique aspect states gain 20% damage reduction. In addition, gain +4 ranks to all skills. So this unique helmet is really strong to greatly increase your maximum resource and to gain +4 ranks to all skills. And gaining maximum resource is important for this build to increase your cooldown of your ultimate skill, Death Trap, and to greatly increase your damage. Next for the chest piece, I'm using the unique chest piece, the Scoundrel's Leathers. And this chest piece is really important because of the implicit stat, which states your trap skills are also considered core skills. So Death Trap Trap will be considered a core skill, and the stats it has is movement speed, damage to trapped enemies, trap damage, and damage reduction from enemies affected by trap skills. And you want to masterwork damage reduction from enemies affected by trap skills. In the unique aspect states, your trap skills can be thrown and will spawn a death trap every 10 seconds when cast, granting you 29% increased damage for 5 seconds. So this chest piece will greatly increase your damage after you cast your trap skill. Next for the gloves, I have maximum life, armor, and plus ranks to core skills. And because death trap will be considered a core skill because of your unique chest piece, plus ranks to core skills will increase death trap's damage. And for the tempering stats, I have crowd control duration and overpower damage. And the only reason we're taking crowd control duration is because of our boss power, Flesh Reaper's Disruption. And this boss power will greatly increase our vulnerable damage based on our crowd control duration bonus. In the legendary aspect states, Caltrop, Smoke Grenade, and Death Trap receive your stun grenades benefits and throw stun grenades that deal 1170 physical damage and stun enemies for 1 second. Your stun grenade deals 45% increased damage. Now this legendary aspect is important, so our Death Trap can receive our stun grenades benefits, because we're going to be taking other legendary aspects for this build that increases our stun grenades damage. So this legendary aspect will greatly increase your Death Trap's damage. Next for the pants, I'm using the unique pants Eyes in the Dark, and the stats it has is maximum life, ultimate damage, damage reduction from enemies affected by trap skills, and plus ranks to aftermath. And you want to masterwork maximum life. And the unique aspect states, Death Trap deals 125% increased damage and will rearm itself once after activating. So these unique pants will greatly increase your Death Trap's damage. Next for the boots, I'm using the unique boots, the Beastful boots, and the stats it has is maximum resource, movement speed, ultimate cooldown reduction, and plus ranks to agile. And you want to triple masterwork maximum resource. In the unique aspect states, when you cast an ultimate skill, your next core skill consumes all energy and deals 60% increased damage per energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 25 energy. And these unique boots are important for this build because your ultimate skill will be considered a core skill because of your unique chest piece. So these unique boots will allow you to consume all your energy and greatly increase your ultimate skill's damage. Next for the weapons. Now for the two-handed weapon, I'm using a crossbow. And I have the stacks dexterity, maximum life, and overpower damage. And for the tempering stats, I have overpower damage and chance for Death Trap to deal double damage. And you want to triple masterwork maximum life. And the legendary aspect states, casting an ultimate skill increases your ultimate damage by 18.4% up to 184%. At 10 stacks, your cooldown and this bonus are reset. So this legendary aspect will greatly increase your ultimate skill, Death Trap's damage. Next for the one-handed weapon, I'm using the uber unique sword, the Doombringer. And the stats it has is all stats, percent maximum life, damage reduction, and lucky hit, up to a 15% chance to heal life. And you want to triple masterwork percent maximum life. In the unique aspect states, lucky hit, up to a 25% chance to deal 3,900 shadow damage to surrounding enemies and reduce their damage dealt by 20% for 5 seconds. Now the main reason we're using this uber unique sword is because it has percent maximum life. We want to greatly increase our maximum life because having tons of maximum life will greatly increase our overpower damage and is also really good for survivability. The next one-handed weapon I'm using is a one-handed sword, and I have the stats dexterity, maximum life, and overpower damage. And for the tempering stats, I have overpower damage and chance for Death Trap to deal double damage. And you want to triple masterwork maximum life. In the legendary aspect states, when you enter or break stealth, you drop a cluster of exploding stun grenades around you that deal 1131 total physical damage and stun enemies for 1 second. Your stun grenades deal 43% increased damage. Now the only reason we're taking this legendary aspect is because of the second part of this legendary aspect, which states your stun grenades deal 43% increased damage because your ultimate skill Death Trap will gain your stun grenades benefit. So this legendary aspect will greatly increase your Death Trap's damage. Next for the amulet, I'm using the unique amulet, the Banished Lord's Talisman. And the stats it has is maximum life, attack speed, overpower damage, and plus ranks to core skills. And you want to triple masterwork percent maximum life. And the unique aspect states, after you spend 275 of your primary resource, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower. Your critical strikes that overpower deal 60% increased damage. Now because of our unique boots, the Beastful boots, which will spend all our resource, and since Death Trap will be considered a core skill because of our unique chest piece, and because of our skill Aftermath on the skill tree, we'll be able to regain all our primary resource. So this unique amulet will allow our Death Trap to overpower all the time. Next for the rings. Now for the first ring, I'm using the uber unique ring, the Ring of Starless Skies. And this ring has attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and plus ranks to core skills. And you want to triple masterwork plus ranks to core skills because Death Trap will be considered a core skill because of our unique chest piece. And the unique aspect states, spending your primary resource reduces your resource cost of your skills and increases your damage by 10% for 3 seconds up to 50%. So this unique ring will greatly increase your Death Trap's damage. And for for the second ring, I have maximum life, attack speed, and resistance to all elements. And for the tempering stats, I have overpower damage and death trap cooldown reduction. And you want to triple masterwork maximum life. And the legendary aspect states, when you spend 75 energy, you release a cluster of exploding stun grenades that deal 689 total physical damage and stun enemies for 1 second. Your stun grenades deal 43% increased damage. And since death trap will gain the stun grenades benefits, this legendary aspect will greatly increase your death trap's damage. Okay, so next for the runes and gems. So on the helmet, I'm using the Zan rune and the Zal rune. And this rune set will greatly increase our maximum life when we use our ultimate skill. And having tons of maximum life is important for this build to greatly increase our overpower damage and also for survivability. And on the rest of the armor pieces, I'm using emerald gems to increase my dexterity, which will increase our damage. And on the two-handed weapon, I'm using the Pock rune and Vex rune. And this rune set will give us +1 ranks to all skills when we spend our resource, which is strong to increase our damage. And on the one-handed weapons, I'm using ruby gems to increase my overpower damage. And for the jewelry, now on the amulet, I'm using a skull gem to increase my armor. And on the rings, I'm using diamond gems to increase my elemental resistance. And you always want to use your potions and 3 incense to greatly increase your stats and to greatly increase your experience gain to level up faster. So for the potion, I used the elixir of resourcefulness 2. And this potion will grant you resource cost reduction and 25 maximum resource, which is powerful to greatly increase your damage of your ultimate skill death trap and to reduce its cooldown. And for the incense, I used the Queen Supreme to greatly increase my dexterity for damage, Redmine Buzz to greatly increase my maximum life, and Soothing Spices to increase my resistance to all elements, increase my maximum resistance to all elements, and to increase my armor. Okay, so now checking out my stats, I have 1152 armor, which is above the armor cap of 1000. And if you check out my elemental resistance, all my resistance is almost capped out. But with this build, you will have tons of maximum life, so you will not die even if your elemental resistance is not capped out. Okay, so I did showcase a build to easily clear high tier pits and also speed farm dungeons. And make sure you masterwork your gear, as it's crucial for significantly boosting your stats. And this full build layout and alternate build layouts will be in the D4 build planner linked in the description below. Okay, next I want to quickly go over the skill rotation for this build to greatly increase my damage and to have Death Trap active all the time. Now this build does require you to have some stacks of momentum to have Death Trap active all the time. Now for my current build, I need to have at least 3 stacks of momentum. So using Dash twice, then Shadow Step once will allow me to get 3 stacks of momentum. And then I can use Death Trap to reduce all my skills cooldown and then keep using Dash or Shadow Step to cap out my momentum stacks. And when pushing high tier pits, you want to use your healing potions, which will increase your damage because of the skill Unstable Elixirs. And you'll also want to evade to greatly increase your damage because of the skill Ballistra. And make sure you always use the concealment skill before using the ultimate skill Death Trap to have your Death Trap always critically strike and make enemies vulnerable. And you also want to use Dash or Shadow Step imbued with your Shadow Imbuement skill every 6 to 8 seconds to greatly increase our damage because of our other skills on the skill tree and a legendary node, the Eldritch Bounty legendary node on the Paragon board. And you also want to use Caltrops on groups of enemies to greatly increase your overall damage. But if you're just speed farming and not pushing high tier pits, and if enemies die instantly, then all you really need to use is the skill Dash and Death Trap to destroy everything on the screen. Okay, so next for the Paragon board. Now this is a fully optimized Paragon board for this build to push the highest tier pits and also for speed farming any content in the game. And I do want to mention that it is very important to level up your glyphs, as your glyphs will greatly increase your damage. Now the Paragon board in the D4 build planner will have all the important nodes you'll want, but I'm not going to use all the Paragon points because everyone has not maxed out their Paragon level. But if you have extra Paragon points, then you just want to add more dexterity or more damage to increase your damage. Now I'm just going to quickly go over this Paragon board, going over the important nodes and glyphs, but I'll have the full Paragon board layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. So starting with the starter board, I'm using the versatility glyph, and this glyph will greatly increase your non-basic and non-core skills damage. So basically this glyph will greatly increase your ultimate skills Death Traps damage. The next Paragon board I took is Danse Macabre, and the glyph I'm using is Canny, and this glyph will greatly increase your non-physical damage. I'm also using the legendary node Danse Macabre, and this states casting a mobility or subterfuge skill increases the damage of your next skill by 75%. So this skill will greatly increase our ultimate skills Death Trap's damage when we use the skill Concealment before Death Trap. Then heading left this way, and the next Paragon board I took is Eldritch Bounty, and the glyph I'm using is Headhunter, and this glyph will greatly increase our damage to elites. I'm also using the legendary node Eldritch Bounty, and this states when you attack with imbued skill, you gain 3% maximum resistance and 30% increased damage for that imbuements element for 9 seconds. So this legendary node will greatly increase our shadow damage when using Dash or Shadow Step imbued with our Shadow Imbuement skill. So this will greatly increase our ultimate skill, Death Trap's damage, because Death Trap deals shadow damage. Then heading down this way, and the next Paragon board I took is Deadly Ambush, and the glyph I'm using is Explosive, and this glyph will greatly increase our stun grenade's damage, and we'll also gain damage reduction after dropping a stun grenade. And because of our ultimate skill, Death Trap takes our stun grenade's benefits, this glyph will greatly increase our ultimate skill's Death Trap's damage. I also took the legendary node Deadly Ambush, which states you deal 30% increased critical strike damage to enemies affected by your trap skills. So this legendary node will greatly increase our critical strike damage when enemies are affected by your Death Trap. Then heading left this way, and the last Paragon board I took is No Witness, and the glyph I'm using is Ambush, and this glyph will greatly increase your trap skills damage. I also took the legendary node No Witness, and this states your ultimate skills gain an additional 20% increased damage from your damage with ultimate bonus, and grant this bonus to all skills for 10 seconds when cast. Current bonus 60%, maximum bonus 60%. So this legendary node will greatly increase your ultimate skills Death Trap's damage. Now I do want to mention that you want to take all the rare nodes and magic nodes that increases your maximum life, because increasing your maximum life will increase your overpower damage and is really good for survivability. And make sure you level up your glyphs to get the additional bonus and legendary bonus to greatly increase your damage. Okay, so that's a fully optimized Paragon board for this build for maximizing your damage and survivability. And you want to level up your glyphs to get the additional bonus to greatly increase your stats. And if you have extra Paragon points, then you want to get more dexterity or more damage to increase your damage. Now I have this full Paragon board layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. Okay, so thanks for checking out one of the best, strongest, and fastest Death Trap rogue build in Season 8. With this build, you can easily push high tier pits, speed farm dungeons, and one-shot any uber bosses. With this build, you should have maximum damage and survivability to clear the hardest content in the game. This is a really fun and easy build to play, and I'll have this full build layout and alternate build layouts in a D4 build planner in the description below. Hope this helps in more Diablo 4 videos to come, so stay tuned. And of course,